Hey, how are you guys doing out there? Thank you for joining us here at the Minding Your Money podcast. My name is Deb Howard. I'm your abundant life coach. I help just amazing entrepreneurs, faith based leaders overcome those limiting beliefs about money so that they can get out of debt, live their most abundant life. And I'm excited to be here on today. So, listen, let me pass it to my partner over here, Love. Go ahead and introduce.
Hey, Deb. I am Love Pate, the anointed architect and mindset mentor. I help female leaders of faith shift their mindset in order to build structurally sound connections to their true identity so that through a strong sense of value, they can see a clear pathway from their now until the next evolution of themselves. I'm glad to be here today, too, Deb.
Yes, I'm excited. And I think we have a great topic to talk about today. If you're joining us, you probably saw the title, Are Wealthy Blacks Selling Out? Now, I thought this was a great topic, especially because obviously I'm Black, I'm African American here in America. And that term has been around literally as long as I can remember. I've always heard that term thrown around to describe certain individuals. So I thought it would be a great time to talk about it. But before we get deep in it, I'm going to give you the definition. I mean, hey, let's all be on the same page, right? So the definition of a sellout, it's a term used across various communities, including the African American community, to describe someone who is perceived to have betrayed their own group, principles, or cause for personal gain. This term, of course, carries a strong negative connotation, implying that the individual abandoned their cultural, ethical, or social roots in favor of the dominant population. You know what we're talking about. So, with that said, gosh, since we're talking about money on this show, right? Minding your money. I thought it was important for us to kind of address this because what happens, I think, and one thing I think that happens is that as we begin to earn more, as we begin to upgrade not just our lifestyle, but our thinking, our opinions evolve, our thoughts about certain things may evolve. I think, and I'm just thinking about this, Love, I think even what we enjoy evolves, right? Depending
Okay.
on our socioeconomic status. So,
Right.
what do you think about all of this?
Well, and listening to the definition that you gave, and I'm glad you started out with that. I believe this is subjective. Okay. One of the things that you spoke about is that as we gain wealth or as we get greater experiences, what we enjoy evolves. So, what I perceive, right, to be what I quote, sell out is going to evolve, right? Let's
Mhm.
just say that if I am challenged with money, right? And I see somebody who making money, but they ain't handing me none, then I consider them to be a sellout. But the person that's making money had to work a process to get to their wealth. And that person who is now evolved may be saying, why won't you work the same process?
Mhm.
Versus sitting there and expecting somebody to hand you something, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I feel that a lot of times sellout is from the perspective of either, and this is my opinion,
Mhm.
that somebody's have attained something that you want, and either you felt you somebody owed it to you and didn't get it, you
Mhm.
too lazy and didn't do the work to get it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. But
Yep.
somewhere in your mind, you believe this is something that you should have. So instead of calling the person what I consider to be a sellout, why don't I start looking at some of the principles and practices of how they got to where they got? Right? If they
Yeah.
have something that I would like to obtain, and I'm not saying covet, right? But if
Mhm.
I want to be wealthy or if I want to have freedom in life, then I need to find somebody that's the example of what I am looking for and pattern myself, my disciplines after that, in order that contain similar, may not be the same thing, but similar things. So I think it's subjective.
I would agree it's subjective, but the definition carries so much, right?
A lot.
So I think, yeah, money is one part. I
Right.
think a lot of times, I think you're right. Sometimes we look at people that have made it to a certain stature, right? And I thought it was interesting, yeah, that in one of the websites, a pretty reputable one at that, NPR, right, talked about some sellouts, and Barack Obama was on that list. Now, I think that's interesting. Now, in this season that we're in, this is 2024. I think the Obamas are probably the most popular living presidents right now, right? Living president and first lady. Very popular in our community. But when he was president, and I do remember when he was president, he did make some controversial decisions, right? And I don't want us to get too deep into the politics of it, but there were some controversial decisions that at the time, in that season when he was president, some people in the community believed that they were sellouts because of some of the decisions they made that didn't align. And I'll put it this way, that maybe didn't align with traditional African American thinking in this country.
Right.
I think the interesting thing about being Black in America is that the community, and I'm using that term kind of loosely, but the community in general has a certain way of looking at things. And if you go outside of that box, and politics is one, I'm going to say most of us believe that Black people in America should be Democrats. Now, I know some believe that you can be an independent, but God forbid you're a Republican. I mean, that's just, and I don't know of any Black Republican right now that's not considered a sellout. Right? One ran for president whose name is escaping me right now. But yeah. And then, of course, there's the popular commentary lady, Candace Owens, that some of our audience may be familiar with, who also has conservative, right? Which is, I know conservative for most of us equals Republican, but that's really not true. But her thinking, her opinions are conservative, meaning more traditional, right? More, maybe not your cup of tea, but definitely more traditional in thinking. So, what do you think about? So we talked, kind of danced around the money part, but what about that that other part, right? When we go outside the box in our thinking and don't go with the crowd, with the community, as far as even our political beliefs. I mean, can you be Black in America and not be Democrat? I know that's a loaded question. I know, especially in this election year. I get it. The choices are, not great, but just in general,
So I would say that many of us have selected a party based on tradition. But it comes a point in your life that you have to decide, am I siding with tradition or I'm siding with principle, right? Many people that you say, well, I'm a Democrat. Well, why are you a Democrat? Well, my mom was a Democrat. Grandma was a Democrat. But do we really understand what is the principles of the Democratic Party versus the Liberal Party versus the Republican Party, right? And when you get to a point in your life, which principles of that particular party match the purpose that God has set forth for your life, right? It's time out for tradition. Tradition is what's keeping us stuck in some of the same old ways, going down the same roads, doing the same thing, right? And like, you got to go back to that question. Am I going to stay stuck in tradition? Right?
Yeah.
Or am I going to begin to pick this thing apart and say, okay, I understand this principle as a Democrat that aligns with my beliefs. But then here's a principle, here's a Republican, right? That may also align with my beliefs. So now I'm divided. So what does that mean? I have to settle?
Yeah. 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 I think, as we continue, right, our journey of, really becoming wealthy and high value individuals, what I've always wanted to see in the African American community here in America is diversity. Um, and diversity is not just shades of skin, right? I think we have to have diversity of thought, and not only have diversity of thought, but we've got to be open and accepting that there are other opinions besides our own. Now,
Exactly.
the Democrats might be right. I don't know, y'all. I'm not that deep into politics. So, look, I'm not trying to have political conversation because
And I'm
I'm
not
really not
either.
that into it.
You know,
But what I
this is
did,
not a political party ticket podcast, okay?
no, it's not. But I did want to bring it up because I think that as we grow, things change in us. And I think that, and maybe change, evolve, right? I don't even want to say change. I want to say evolve because I think we do grow. And I think I shared with you, so I'll share with our audience that I met a woman, African American woman, quite wealthy, self-employed, had her own business, her own company, and was very proud to say that she is Republican and probably would vote for Trump. Her stance on that was that as far as the principles of the Republican Party, they align more and help her as a businesswoman more than the principles and doctrines of the Democratic Party. I don't think that she was really a Trump supporter, but in her eyes, and I don't disagree because she made a point I'm thinking about now. In her eyes, the president is really just the figurehead for the party because it really takes, right, all the senators and House of Representatives. They're the ones that pass bills, right? The president has some some power, some autonomy,
but he's only breaking the tie. He's not.
Yeah,
We don't have to break the tie. So
yeah,
that's why we have our two cabinets.
Right. So again, we're not trying to have a political conversation. I'm not trying to say you should vote for Trump or even Biden. I don't care who you vote for, but I think that as we evolve, because I think even talking to her, it caused me to think that, when my business is successful, love, when you are making 7-8 figures in your business, right now, we tend to demonize companies for taking tax breaks that usually are offered by the Republican Party. But when you become a big company and you're paying taxes from at the gazoo, because we already paying them just as an individual, right? But as a company with employees, and there's an opportunity to bring more profit in. I mean, come on now, who wouldn't take it? So I think it's all in our perspective. Now, again, I bring that up because I just really want us, as we continue to mind our money, to be self-aware and to be a little more open. People, we just need to be a little more open. We need to be able to be diverse in our opinions. We need to be able to not label people a sellout when they don't agree with us or when they go against the grain of popular thinking. I think that's part of our problem. And so, yeah, it's surprising. And some other people that were on that list, I think I shared with you, Oprah Winfrey.
And so again, it goes back to the thing of, as I begin to build wealth, my palette changes. Okay. The things that I desired to do when I was in the thousands is going to be very different from the mindset I have when I am managing millions. Right. Yep. And so I'm not a sellout. I'm no longer playing at that playground. Right. Mm-hmm. My mind no longer thinks that way. I no longer feel that I need a handout because now I'm in a position to hand out. Right? it's not that I don't I'm selling out to the beliefs, the traditional beliefs. It's just I'm on a different field. And I believe that's okay. That does not make me a sellout. And now I believe where the line gets grayed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe God gives us wealth and doors to be able to bring or help others, right? So
Yes.
if you are a person that God has blessed you with that type of wealth and those opportunities for doors to help others, and you're not utilizing, right, that grace, that platform to do that, I could see where somebody could probably still kind of play around in, you know what I'm saying, with that definition, because I see it as a grace. God afforded you a grace, right? He
Mm-hmm.
trusted you with millions in order to help build not just your kingdom, to build the kingdom. And
Mm-hmm.
that is going to encompass everybody from homeless to, you know what I'm saying, to the multi-billionaire. So
Yeah.
the question is, you know, am I really selling out, or what am I actually selling, or what am I doing with what God gave me, right? Like, did I make my kingdom about myself, or did I make my kingdom about others? And so, you know, I think a lot of times we really truly get caught up in this old way of thinking, you know. And if you look at all of the different generations, right? I was watching a TikTok the other day about how the different generations think about arriving to work. It was hilarious, right? You
Yeah.
know, and where the newest, I don't know, is Gen Z or whatever. Gen Z, the time to show up was I think it was 8 o'clock, and Gen Z showed up an hour and 45 minutes late and was like, oh, they need me, they can't find me. You get what I'm saying? So it's just like I done got on a different field, right? I
Yeah.
think differently. I think differently about my people. The other thing is that I realize that everybody that's going to be a part of the plan that God has for me, that next, may not look like me. So I'm
Mhm.
going to have to be open, right, to be able to respect that there are people that may have different beliefs than me, but can still partner with me. And I can't be closed in a traditional way of thinking and move into that arena. I have to open my mind to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, just even having this conversation, I think sometimes, again, I feel like I say this a lot, but I think we're sometimes just afraid to even have the conversation, right? I mean, I think it's good for us to begin to communicate and even talk about what's in our inner being, in our inner heart when it comes to this subject. We're not going to get wealth if we can't even talk about wealth, if we can't even, bring up subjects like this. I think one of the things that is really a misnomer is that most wealthy people are the biggest givers. That is literally a fact. They give millions and millions and millions of dollars to
Philanthropy.
thank you, philanthropy, right? They're very Bill Gates, all of them, all of them. I don't want to start going down the list, but most of them um, give all the time, right? And we know, just as believers, that giving is part of the exchange that needs to take place in the kingdom. So I think, even when we talk about that, I know I hear sometimes people in the community saying that they don't do anything for the community. What I believe they're really saying is they're not doing anything for me. And the truth of the matter is, even with the bits, even with the treasure, I'm gonna put it that way, that we have, the question is, what are you doing with it? Because we have a responsibility even with a little, right? You might feel like, I don't have much. If I had XYZ, I would do, ABC. The truth of the matter is, if you're not doing XYZ now, even at some level, you're not going to do ABC later when you think you get the millions, because it's a mindset, it's a
Exactly.
heart issue. And those are the things that we have to confront. And so being jealous or being envious of people because they have more, or they didn't get it in the traditional way. And I'm just going to say it, a lot of times black people in America, right? I do want to say that because I don't think this is always all across the board in the world, but I think because of our particular situation here in America, we kind of have some of that group thinking. And we tend to think that there's only a couple of ways for us to be wealthy. Either you're in sports or you're in entertainment some kind of way, right? Either you can sing or act or you're some kind of athlete. And of course, now we know many people in business, even some of our rappers and singers have branched out into more business roles, buying companies, getting into retail, getting into, alcohol and underwear and all kinds of stuff, really, cereal and chips. And, there's all kinds of things. So we are branching out. But I think in that branch out, as we even have this discussion on sellouts, we have to be open that there's a million ways to make money.
Right.
There's a million ways to be wealthy. There's probably some ways we haven't even figured out and invented yet. And so as we continue to journey right into the wealth that God has stored up for us, it's going to require us to stop labeling each other, stop causing each other pain because they arrived in a place that you want to be. And like you said, love, it's time to take notes. It's time to, what did you do? Listen, you don't have to agree with their political opinion. You don't have to agree with everything in order to learn from people.
Right.
You just don't. And I think that we get caught up in that. Well, they're not a believer. Okay. But can you get what you can get from them though?
Right.
Does it require that maybe you're called to them to share the gospel? And if they don't want to receive the gospel, then give me the wisdom that you have, because there is wisdom in the earth. It's in the world too. It's in vessels that are not in church. Okay. Go ahead.
I think that sometimes we don't get it because we're closed vessels. Like, are you open to receive? Right? You said sell out. Well, these people sold out to more money, more opportunity, more freedom, right? More people that may not look like them. And so they sold out to more. And what we have to ask ourselves, what have you sold out to? Because it's something about selling out. Like, I know we're looking at it from a negative standpoint of saying, oh, you don't believe, you're not going with the status quo. I mean, did Jesus go with the status quo? I don't think Jesus went with the status quo. So if I'm going to follow after, my Lord and Savior, he didn't go with the status quo.
No, he didn't.
So why am I trying to be a part of the crowd? So these people decided, I don't want to be a part of the crowd. I don't want to be a carbon copy. I'm going to sell out to this. And I think that's the thing that, we're too busy sitting around labeling people, right? Versus learning from people that can help us come out of the situations that others have labeled, right? We impoverished. We're not smart enough. All of those things. But these are people who have been placed in front of us that have shown us that if we sell out to something different than the traditional way of thinking, we can change the course of our lives. So instead of worrying about, did I sell out to the traditional handout? Like, you need to ask yourself, did I sell out to learning the principles so I can get on a different highway, get on a different pathway to something that I truly desire?
Yeah.
We spend too much time, I think, focusing on really the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Because there's billionaires all over and all of them aren't Christians.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, anything that God's going to do is going to be bigger than just us.
Yeah.
And it takes wealth to make an impact. I can have ideas all day long.
Yes.
But if I ain't got no money behind it, right?
Yeah.
Money talks.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to be able to take the ideas that God has given you, right? and be able to
Mhm.
go into rooms and be able to communicate them in such a way that people who may not believe the same way you believe wants to buy in, wants to sell out to your vision. And so much so that they will put their money on it. They'll put their money on the line.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, I think it does take that. And you're so right. The Bible says money answereth all things. Listen, what's the question? Because money has an answer. Now, yeah, I know. Every time we have these conversations, I know somebody's thinking already, money ain't everything. Money is close to it. Okay. Because we need the resource, right? If you have health issues, money will get you a doctor. Listen, you will be able to get the best doctors. You won't be strapped to Medicare or Medicaid or what the government will give you. So I don't get me down this road, love. But yes, wealth is the key. And so in the kingdom, it is so critical for us in this hour, for us to really get that revelation that we must have the wealth.
Right.
We are no longer in a position to keep waiting for somebody to give us something, to save us, right? I feel like that's one thing I really believe that some of us feel, even with some of our political beliefs, that somebody can save us if we get the right. Nobody's gonna save you. Okay. Look, Jesus already died. So nobody's going to save you, right? There's not some figure that's going to become mayor or president or whoever that's going to wipe away your problems. The best they're going to do is pass you some little tip check that you going, that you'll use and won't last, right? That won't last you very long. All right. So I need us. One of the reasons why I want to talk about this is to get in our head that pursuing and rising, right? Our thinking, raising our thinking, and getting to a place of pursuing what God has told us, given us the power to pursue. You have the power to get wealth, right? That it's not selling out. I think sometimes when people get wealthy, we just automatically, if they don't stay in the neighborhood, listen, when I'm making 7, 8
Well,
figures, you
well,
can forget me staying in this neighborhood. I
but
mean,
then,
I might help the neighborhood, but why I gotta? That's
but
just
if
me,
you
y'all.
think about it, though, okay, let's listen. Come on, let's go outside of let's just think about business principles, right?
Mm,
Okay, no shade to nobody. If this is a neighborhood where the highest property value in this neighborhood maybe 100,000, but or less. Let's just
yeah,
say it's 30 to 60,000. So you want me to come and build my $2 million property in a neighborhood where the property value don't even amount to the taxes on my property? That doesn't make good business sense.
yeah,
Well, it's not that they sold out. They just cultivated a palette that led them to a different, you know what I'm saying? A different
yeah,
lane, a different area. So
yeah,
it's like, so now they're in a position, right? It's almost in a, and I don't want to take this wrong. We always say God sits on the throne, right? He sits high, he looks low, right?
yeah,
Sometimes if I remain in the neighborhood, I can't see what the neighborhood needs.
yeah,
And that's what happens. We've stayed too long. And so now we have become comfortable in dysfunctionality. We
mm,
think that this is all it is.
yeah,
Until we start taking take our kids on some trips, take them to NASA, they be like, wow. You understand what I'm saying? And
yeah.
so you can't cultivate a palate for more, stand in a place where people believe less, right?
You cannot. And as you grow, audience members, as you grow, and as you begin to, earn more, build wealth, whether it's through business or some other means, through job or whatever, you want to be around people that can feed your brain, right? That can feed your mind, right? That are pursuing the things that you're pursuing, that can have a conversation. Listen, I'm not a millionaire, But a millionaire that is talking about buying a jet or flying to Paris on Saturday morning, I'm probably going to have a hard time relating to. I'm probably just going to be listening. And if I'm really good, maybe shaking my head. But I'm not going to have much conversation for that. What are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm going to HEB. Pick up some groceries.
Pick up,
Go get my car washed.
my online grocery order.
So, and I say that to help us see, right, that, you know, as we move up, right, the things that we have in common with the people that we know now may change, right? I think that's really why the circle tends to change. And we talk about that a lot just in general, right? That as God's doing a new thing in your life, you might have to leave some people behind, or you might have to, you know, change your connections. I think it's more because you don't have as much in common anymore. If that person is not thinking like you're thinking, if you're thinking about going high and they're thinking about, you know, checking out, you know, what's on TV tonight, you know, and no shade, right? Because I think it takes all of us, but it is a different mindset. And I think that, again, I think that goes back to what I said earlier about just being diverse. We have to be a community, a people that are diverse, not only in our shadings, in our color, but in our opinion, in our thinking. Look, it's going to take all of that for the community to be successful. And it's going to take all of that to build the kingdom of God here on. That's what we're here for. To build his kingdom, right? To support the kingdom mandate. It's going to take all of that, right? Jesus said himself, Jesus did say the poor would always be among you, but listen, that don't mean you have to be poor. That was not, listen, that was not like a blessing. The poor, that was a statement that he was making to his disciples to let them know, listen, you better come minister to me, because you always gonna have poor people. That's really the context and what he was saying there. Y'all need to come on here and take care of me, because you always gonna have them jokers here. So listen. We ain't got to be poor. That's all I'm saying.
But if you think about it, so Deb, if you think about it, and we laugh about it, but it's real. Like, our Father is the King of Kings. Mm-hmm. He owns everything. Anything we think we own, we don't own, right? Mm-hmm. It's so. Why is it that as we the daughters and sons of the kings and kings, we supposed to be poor? That doesn't even line up. I'm royalty, but I'm supposed to be poor. That doesn't make sense, right? And I think the thing that we have to understand is, with each new level in life, it's going to require a greater degree of voltage, of power, right? Mm-hmm. So that means every time I begin to rise or soar, right, I need to be talking to the people on that next level in order to get the power for me to be sufficient on that level. I can't do a 120. You know, I got a 120 volt, but now I'm up here on a level I need a 220.
Yeah.
It's not going to be enough power sufficient enough for me to operate on this level. And I think that's the thing. We are trying to go to the next level, but we're not increasing our power. We're not increasing our connections, right? We're not talking to people that fuel our mind with the things we need to go to the next level. We're getting stuck in complacency, right?
Yeah.
But we want more, or so we think we want more. But wanting more requires us to do something different.
Yeah.
Right? Wanting more requires us to talk to different people, requires us to go to different places, right?
Yep.
A lot of times it's really that we want the idea of more. And that's the reason why we begin to talk about sellouts, because for us it's really an idea. But for the people who actually gained wealth, it wasn't an idea. It may have started off as an idea, but it went from an idea to a plan, right? To strategy. You know, prosperity. It moved through that process so that it actually began to manifest, right? Because the thing that people don't understand about your mind, and this is what people need to know, Your mind is only going to work on what you tell it. So
That's
if
right.
I start to tell my mind, I need you to work on this multi-billionaire idea, that is what my mind's going to focus on. But if
Mm-hmm.
I sit over here with limited thinking, right? And I got
Mm-hmm.
my mind focusing on defining other people and talking about, then gossiping and things that amount to nothing,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm using what God gave me to build nothing.
Yeah.
The mind is a mainframe. You
Yeah.
program it how you want. If you want prosperity, program it for prosperity. If you want poverty, program it for poverty. Because that's
Yeah.
what it's going to work towards. There's no like in between, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. 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 You got to tell your thoughts what to think. you know, because if you don't, I talked about this earlier. Um, if you don't if you don't control your thinking, your thoughts will control you.
Control you all day.
If you don't tell your mind what to think, you'll constantly have these random thoughts of nothingness that you'll brush off and that aren't directed towards anything, right? People say, "Oh, I'm say the first thing in my head." Oh, the devil is a lie. You're gonna tell your thoughts what to think, right? You're not gonna just say what pop into your head, right? You're gonna feed that brain the right stuff, right? Wasn't that a commercial or something? Anyway, let's not get into that.
If it's not, we need to make it. We gonna make it a commercial.
But that was so good, love. Yeah, that was so good. I mean, I think that really sums up, our discussion about sellouts, our black wealthy blacks selling out in our community. Listen, I know we could have that discussion forever and ever, and maybe we'll pick it up again, because I think another thing that contributes to that, here in America especially, is our identity and who we believe we are. I don't even want to touch that, because I know we're gonna go down a whole
a whole nother podcast.
Oh man, but I just thought about that, and I said, I think it has something to do with identity too, because we do have an identity crisis of such in America. We just always have. We just always have. I think, as a people. But anyway, maybe not go down that road. I might cut that out. So what I do want to say is thanks for joining us for the Minding Your Money podcast. I think it's been a great conversation. What do you think, love? I think we've had a great conversation.
I think it's been a great conversation. If I could wrap up my thoughts, I would say, because you asked the question, are Black wealthy people selling out? Okay, so I'm going to answer the question. I think they are, but they're selling out to more. It's not what you think. See, it's not that they've decided that they don't want to be a part of the mainstream. They're not going to be traditional, right? They're going to be transformational. They're going to be different, outside of the norm. So yeah, they're selling out to more. And we have to decide, do we want to get on that same path? If somebody say, "Well, are you selling out?" and I'm in my plane and I'm wealthy and I can give to people and I can build the kingdom, yeah, I'm selling out to more. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, that's good. Listen. When we talk about selling out, there has to be something to buy. And so some of us, do you have anything to buy to begin with? I mean, what the life that you have, would you buy it? How about that?
Woo-wee.
I mean, I think that's something for all of us to consider.
Right.
If you could buy a life, would you buy yours? Would that be, oh, I want that? Some of you may, right? I mean, hey, I'm not saying, everybody would say no. But it's just a thought, because I think that when we talk about wealthy Black people or wealthy people in general, right, selling out, right, they had to decide that this life, this what I had before, I'm willing to give that up,
right,
for the greater.
Right. I'm dissatisfied with now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
They had to give that up. And I think that for some of us, and maybe not all, right? Because I do believe in diversity of thought. So maybe not all of us, but some of us are willing to give up, right? This for that. And I think that that's okay. And I think that when people do make that decision, it is going to look different
Right.
than maybe their previous life. And if that equates to a sellout because they're no longer using, slang or don't keep up with the slang, right? If they're not in the neighborhood anymore and not doing all the things with, the cousins and the brothers, um, that sometimes I know can hurt. I know we miss people, that have elevated to certain levels and we see them and think, oh man, they don't do this, they don't do that. But there's a different level of responsibility,
Right.
right? When you are the manager of wealth, right? That's a whole nother thing too, stewardship,
Right.
right? So there's a responsibility in that. And many times with wealthy people, even when we look at celebrities, usually they have many people that work for them, right? That their livelihood is dependent on them being successful. I
Right.
think sometimes we don't think about those things, that
Right.
it's not just them. Usually, stars, especially major stars, right? They're a company, they're a whole
Business.
business. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes people to do all of that, right?
Yeah.
We all just watched the Super Bowl. It took hundreds, if not thousands of people to put on that show that Usher put on, right? It wasn't just him. He didn't even get
Exactly.
paid. He had to pay all the people,
Right. And
right?
yeah. And I mean,
So,
yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think sometimes people don't understand that they're about the responsibility of stewardship. And
mhm,
so like you got sometimes you do have to sell out to soar, but what like again, I'm gonna go back to it, is what they sold out to is limited thinking, living on a lower level. They sold out to anything that would keep them from living on that next level, from fulfilling that blueprint in which God showed them. They were willing to give these things up so that they could get what God had for them.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think that's the thing. We cannot allow limited thinking to cause our lives to be limited. And I mean not just money. I'm talking about in every area.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because if we limit our own thinking, we're limiting someone else.
Right.
Someone else, and we say it all the time as believers, somebody is waiting on you.
Exactly.
Somebody is hoping that you will rise up. Somebody can't wait to see you become successful so that you can teach them how to be successful,
Oh,
or
that's
so
good.
that you can hire them, or so that you can be their mentor. Come on now. We have to stop being selfish. I don't know how else to put it.
Right.
We have to stop being selfish. You might be comfortable. Maybe you are comfortable in how your lifestyle and whatever you're doing, but it's more than just about you. And I think even if we look at the so-called sellouts, even if you think about people that you consider a sellout, you will see that they are impacting lives. Every sellout that I looked up on Google impacts lives. Every single one.
Right. In some
Oprah
way.
impacts hundreds, again, if not thousands of lives, probably thousands in her career, right? Of having her show, her studio, all of these people that work for her and work for her companies, right? To support the dream, the vision, the goals that she has,
Right.
right? And so it's not just, again, it's not just getting the wealth. So, they trying to be all of that. No, it's getting the wealth so that we can impact lives and fulfill the kingdom mandate.
Yeah.
And they work together. Impacting lives and the kingdom mandate work together, right?
Right.
It's not separate. because there are people in the kingdom, right? So we want to impact those lives, right? And it's a testimony of the goodness of God. I think we forget that, you know. Sometimes our wealth speaks louder than our Bible. I wish I had somebody right there. Listen, people will see your success sometimes, your wealth, and then hear about your God. Look, how a poor man gonna tell? Okay, let me look.
Listen.
Let me leave this alone. Let me leave this alone because you know, but I hopefully we've given you enough to really consider on tonight, on today, whenever you're watching this, that you know, being wealthy is not selling out, and people that are wealthy are not selling out, right? However way you want to look at it, it's about impact. And I think how I will sum it up for me is, what are you willing to do to fulfill that mandate of making an impact on other lives and fulfilling the mandate of the kingdom?
That's good.
Because when we don't do that, that's really the sellout right there. You're really being a sellout by not doing that. Okay. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening in. Listen, join us again for our next podcast on Minding Your Money. And I'm sure we may continue this discussion because this one has went on for a while. So we might continue. We might talk a little bit more about some other aspects of this. But until next time, take care.